As you can see, Tailwind Traders, they've started to configure Microsoft Teams as their collaboration hub. So first, they created a Tailwind Traders team, and you can see if I go to manage this team, they have lots of members and guests that are invited, and I can see their roles, I can change their roles, I can set tags, locations, things like that. And under the teams, we have a general channel for general chatting. We have an Azure board web channel for Azure boards activity. And we also have a GitHub web channel for GitHub activity. Now let's take a look at the general channel, and you can see notifications are already happening from the integrations that I've added. If we go to the Files tab, these are the files we have in our SharePoint. And if I click on this file, it will open up this file where I can start editing it right here inside of Teams. And if I want to, I can open it on the desktop, or if I want to view this in SharePoint, I can simply click on Open in SharePoint, and it will take me directly to my SharePoint site. We've also integrated with OneNote, so here's my OneNote notebook. And under here, you can see we're capturing meeting notes right now. We've also set up a SharePoint tab, and this will show us any files we create inside the SharePoint for our team. But what about meetings and conference calls? Well, let's take a look. So you can see here that we have a fully integrated calendar, and all my information is right here in Teams. And if I needed to join one of these meetings, I can simply right-click on it and join without needing to leave the Teams experience. And what about calls? Yeah, I can do that as well. I can accept calls, I can make calls, and I also have integration to a whole bunch of third-party applications, things like OneNote and SharePoint, and also GitHub. And speaking of GitHub, I've configured GitHub to send me updates from our GitHub projects in real time into our chat. So this helps me keep an eye on things that I care about. We also have this GitHub tab, right? And this will show us all of our live and open pull requests. So those are open and closed for our project. I also wanted live updates to happen in our chat channel, so I used the GitHub Enterprise connector to send these live updates from our project right here into our GitHub web channel. Now, we didn't want to flood the general chat with this type of activity, so that's why we created this separate channel. I've also created an Azure Boards web channel, and we set it up very, very similar to how we set up this GitHub web channel. So this channel is showing us updates inside of our Azure boards where we can keep track of things that's going on, right? So this is our Azure boards, and we're doing all sorts of stuff, right? We're tracking all of our work items for our project. And as work is being done, right, as it's being moved, as work changes, as things gets assigned, all of these changes are actually reflected right here in the Azure Boards web channel in the chat in real time. And this makes it really easy to see what's going on without having to leave the Microsoft Teams experience. Now, we've also configured the Azure DevOps app to show our board right here inside of Teams. And what's even better, you can do real work here. You can move items, assign things, make updates, all right here without having to leave Teams. And just like before, you can see these things happening in real time in the Azure Boards web channel. All right, I noticed a moment ago that Abel had moved one of these tasks to the done column because he completed it, right? So here we go, there it is. So that tells me there's probably a pull request that's open. So let's go check. We'll pop on over to our GitHub web channel and we'll look at the pull request tab. And as you can see, 5 hours ago, Abel opened up a pull request because he added that security.markdown file and he wanted the team to review it. So here I've started the review process for this pull request, telling the team, hey, let's go ahead and review it. And it looks like he's adding that sample.security.markdown file. And that's totally fine for us because, you know, we're just starting out with this file. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment and write him a comment telling him, hey, everything looks great. And I'm going to go ahead and merge this. So I'm going to set it to approve and submit my review. And now that that is all done, you can see there is one approval, and I'm going to go ahead and merge this pull request. And after clicking merge pull request, you see there's a note here about the merge that's about to happen, and I'll go ahead and confirm it. And you'll see that the pull request was successfully merged into the main branch. Now, if we go back into Teams, the web channel, you'll see all the updates have happened in real time, and it's been reported right here inside the channel. And this freaking rocks, right? Because the beauty of this is the rest of the team, they didn't have to be inside of GitHub. Now they can see these notifications as they're doing their daily work, and these notifications happen right inside of Microsoft Teams. Now that we've taken a look at GitHub and Microsoft Teams, we're going to take a look at Visual Studio Code and how that can help Tailwind traders. Visual Studio Code is an open source free text editor. The source code, it's on GitHub, and you can download and run this app on Windows, Linux, and Mac. And it has Git commands built right into it. It also has language support for all kinds of languages through extensions. Now, these extensions, they can be found in Visual Studio Code Marketplace, where there are literally thousands of extensions. Extensions for all kinds of languages, extensions for tooling support, extensions for connectivity and deployment, and extensions that support multiple cloud, not just Azure. So here's an example of a cool extension. This extension is for the Azure CLI, and you can create a script with the Azure CLI which lets you use the command line to do just about anything inside of Azure. Now you can save this file as a bash file, as a shell script, as a PowerShell script, or as a .az CLI file. Now if you save it as a .az CLI file, that's when the magic happens, right? Because you get IntelliSense and code snippets that you can use inside of your code. It also has integrated terminal, and you can create a side-by-side editor to make sure your CLI script is doing what it's supposed to do. And you can get documentation on mouseovers as well. Here's another cool example. This is the GitHub pull request and issues. Now, Git capabilities for push, pull, and other basic Git commands are built right into VS Code, the core product. However, GitHub-specific things like tracking issues and pull requests, those are not. But you can download this pull request extension, and now you can do things like review and comment on pull requests, and validate pull requests, and check out users. And these are all built. There are also some built-in actions to start a branch or create issues from to-do comments, right? So a really powerful extension. There's also a live share extension pack that's super, super cool. This lets you code and collaborate in real time with anyone else that has VS Code. They need VS Code and the live share extension pack. And you can do all this live coding with both video and chat. So enough of flipping around through slides. Let's see all these cool things in action. So now Brian Benz is going to come. He's going to jump in and show us the power of Visual Studio Code.
So here's Visual Studio Code, and I'm working on a site called Tailwind Traders website. This is a local clone of something that I have on GitHub. And basically the code is here on the left. There's something I'm editing on the right, in this case a YAML file. And here's the GitHub capabilities that we have built into it, which I'll be demoing in a little bit. The extensions that I mentioned before are here. So these are the extensions I have enabled, and then they make recommendations on other extensions. There's also the GitHub pull requests extension that I mentioned. And here's, for example, pull request created by me, and it's got all kinds of information in here about the pull request. This is actually me doing a reverse pull to bring in the latest version of Tailwind Traders from the main site. So let's have a look at that on GitHub and see what it looks like. So here's the Tailwind Traders website on GitHub. And as you can see, it's forked from Microsoft Tailwind Traders website. I've got several commits that I've done. And you can see over here on the right, it's 40% JavaScript, 31% CSS. It's got some C#, some PowerShell, some HTML. It's got a shell script in there and some other. Which is Node.js and a couple other things. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to edit some actions that we have created, and we're going to push this to a website that we've already set up. So I'm actually going to go down here. If I look at my code, I want to change this. Instead of saying deploy to website, I want to call it deploy to staging website, because we're actually deploying to a staging site up here. It's called Bbens Tailwind Staging. So let's save that. And if you'll see over here on the left, it tells me if I go into my built-in GitHub capabilities here, I've got one change, which is main YAML, and that needs to be committed. So let's say I change deployment to staging. All right, I saved that. If I click the little checkbox here, it's going to tell me it automatically commits it, but I forgot to stage it. So this is one of the nice things about Visual Studio Code. It reminds me, hey, you have nothing staged to commit. Do you want to stage your changes and commit them? Yes. So it will actually commit them. Now I have different options for actually getting this out to the GitHub repo. Remember, this is my local clone. So I can just push, or I can do a sync. I really like doing the sync because it pushes and pulls any commits. So if this is being worked on collaboratively, I make sure that I have the most recent versions from the upstream. Okay, so now the change is gone and it's been committed. So what happens, this is a GitHub action, and it's a GitHub action on push. So what's going to happen is when you actually push out to the repo, an action will be triggered. So let's check out that action. The action's actually working. So let's watch that run. And let's actually go into the build and have a look at that. So right now it's installing dependencies, and then it's going to build. So let's just wait for that build and make sure it succeeds. Looks like the build went through, the test went through, and now we're going to publish. So in a few seconds, this should actually publish out to the website once we get down to the deployment stage. Oh no, looks like it's failed at the publish stage. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why. Let's scroll through here and see if we can find out exactly what the error message is. One of the things that is possible at this point is that this is a GitHub Actions environment. It's a very standardized environment that GitHub Actions uses, but maybe there's some special things set up in our development environment that this would run. So for example, this might work on a developer's machine, but for some reason it doesn't work in the GitHub Actions generic environment. So there is one thing we can do to test that out. And it looks like in this case, it's not a problem with NPM, but there is a error on node SAS, which looks like a dependency on node. So I know it's something to do with node, but before I go too far into debugging this, why don't I try running it on a customized environment and see if that works. So to do that, I can actually use something else that's inside of GitHub. If I go straight into my Tailwind Traders main site, I can open with code spaces. So code spaces for GitHub is a way to create a standardized environment that you can reuse. So let's create a new code space. And what that's going to do is it's create a space based on the parameters that my organization has set up inside of here. And there might be something special in here that runs that wouldn't run in the generic environment and allows me to publish and deploy this. So it takes a few seconds to start the code space, but once that's done, it's going to build the container and it's going to run the container, and then I'm going to have everything in my environment here just the way it looked in Visual Studio Code. Now here we are, it's just opening the code. So basically, if you look over on the right, it initializes a code space, builds a container, runs the container, and then it configures the code space for you. So it basically does a clone into this environment, and it creates this container in a environment that can be reused later. So now we can check out this code, and we can see here, for example, we have issues with Tailwind Traders Web, and let's go in and see what that is. So yeah, looks like the object release. Something to do with the attributes here. Yeah, it's very odd. So this isn't going to work even in this environment. Unfortunately, it's not going to work. There's just something wrong with the build and the way it publishes. It's very strange that it worked when you did the build, but not the publish. So let's check out another way we can do this. And by the way, I'm showing you this from GitHub, so Codespace is on GitHub from the web. There is another way to access that, and that is through the remote extensions. If you go to Visual Studio Code over here, there is a way to connect to Codespaces here, and that'll be the Codespaces on GitHub, but you'll be opening it in a new version of Visual Studio Code. It'll look pretty much the same as it did in that environment that I just showed you. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to figure out, I'm at the end of determining, end of my skills and abilities in determining what is exactly wrong with this build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect with a colleague and see if he can help me. This code obviously has some issues. I'm going to need some help figuring out exactly what those issues are. So because I installed the LiveShare extension pack that I mentioned earlier in the slides, I can actually start a live collaboration session, and it's copied to my clipboard now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to phone a friend. I'm going to phone my colleague, Zach, and Zach's going to hop on the line and help me figure this out. So let's do that now. Calling Zach.
Hey, Brian, what's up?
Hey, Zach, how you doing? You got a few minutes?
Sure. What's going on?
Okay, cool. I've got an issue with some code. I can't quite figure out exactly what it is, and I could really use your expertise. So I'm sending you a LiveShare link. You should see it in the Teams chat now.
Yes. Okay, let me join that.
Okay, cool. Great. I'm going to take you off this screen. All right, so let's have a look at the code now. So Zach has joined the collaborative session, so great. So here's the code, basically. It's a GitHub action, and it seems to be failing on Node. I'm not sure exactly why, but I was hoping you could help me out there.
Yeah, so it looks like you have your Node version set to 14, and it might build in that environment, but I think your target environment requires an older version. So let's try Node 10.
Okay.
And see how that goes. I'll save this for you.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. All right, so if we go back into our GitHub controls here, you'll see that there is one change, and it's already populated a comment here, which is co-authored by Zach, so change to Node 10. All right, so what I'll do is I'll commit, and I forgot to stage, so one of the nice things about Visual Studio Code is it reminds you, hey, you don't have anything staged. So yeah, I do want to stage that. And then I could just do a push, but I always find it safer to do a sync. So sync does a push and a pull using the built-in Visual Studio Code commands. And that goes out there. You'll see when this blue finishes that it's actually pushed to the repo. One thing before we leave Visual Studio Code, I did want to mention inside of LiveShare, I could do an audio call as well if I have multiple people and maybe they don't have Teams set up. But for now, I just kept it simple, and Zach and I are talking on Teams instead of joining the chat here. So good to use the tools no matter what you have. There is a way to share the audio. So let's go over to the GitHub action now. If we go in here to the website, if I check actions, as expected, I see that it's running as co-authored by Zach, and the build is in progress, and should just take a couple of seconds to go here. All right, looks like publish happened. That is farther than we got before, so this is great. So let's just check out and make sure it publishes to the website. Well, looks like we published to the website. Let's go back in there and let's check this out. So it should be this URL, should be able to open it. Let's go in a new tab. Yeah, it looks like the website's loaded. Fantastic. So we solved that problem in a second. That's what collaboration is all about. Thanks very much, Zach, for your help in that live collaboration session.
No problem, Brian. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Man, that was a very cool demo showing the power of Visual Studio Code, code spaces in GitHub, and also live share. Okay, so we've covered a lot in this session, so let's do a quick recap. At a high level, we covered how laying a solid foundation for a DevOps strategy can help solve the issues that Tailwind Traders has been facing. And now that Tailwind Traders has a story for source control, collaboration, and shared tooling, they are on the right track to continue down the path of a full DevOps solution. So we also talked about what is DevOps, what is source control, with a quick intro to Git and also GitHub. We discussed how Microsoft Teams has enabled more effective collaboration across the Tailwind Traders organization. And we looked at how Visual Studio Code can help solve problems with shared tooling and even more collaboration. So if you'd like to take a deeper look into what DevOps is with overviews, tutorials, samples, and more, head over to aka.ms, all things DevOps, where you'll find our DevOps Resource Center. And if you'd like to explore the collection of Microsoft Learn content for the AZ400 Designing and Implementing Microsoft DevOps Solution certification, head on over to aka.ms Getting Started DevOps. If you'd like to learn more about getting certified, you can head on over to aka.ms/AZ400cert. So, thank you all so much for joining us, and join our next session too, Managing the Flow of Work.